So, you've just won the lottery. £1 million has been deposited into your bank account within the week. What do you do? Oh god, that looks like haunted house. Scary stories, lighting. Okay, that won't work. Oh, that doesn't make a good noise. Can I hang that there? That works. What is happening, people? My name is Robbie and today we are talking about spending money. Last week I posed a scenario of what you should do if you won £1 million in the lottery. More specifically, the Millionaire Maker raffle, which pays out £1 million if you win. But before I go any further, I'll let previous Robbie explain from last week. So in the UK we have what's known as the Millionaire Maker, and whenever you buy a ticket, not only do you enter to win the jackpot of £10 million, £20 million, Euro Millions, £100 million, you also get an entry into the Millionaire Maker with every ticket. If you win this, you win £1 million. Simple. If you haven't watched last week's video, you should go back and watch it. It's much more financially intelligent than this video is going to be. But at the end of last week's video, I did say I would make the same video but an irresponsible version this week. No index funds, no rental properties, no stocks, no shares, no crypto, just straight up shiny stuff. And if you're wondering why I'm sat on the end of my bed instead of in my office, we're moving house in the next couple months, so I've just started packing here and there. So that room's slowly but surely starting to fill up with boxes, and those boxes have ended up in the corner where I work. So I thought I'd get out of that messy room because it stresses me out, and I'll come into this messy room. So back onto the topic, I've done a little browsing online, trying to figure out what I could buy for £1 million, and I'll be honest, it is harder than I expected it to be. You could buy a Ferrari for 150 grand. You've still got £850,000 to go. But speaking of shiny stuff, let's start off with the shiny stuff I would buy for myself. First up, a new pair of Gucci Aces. I already have 2 pairs of these, but my white pair are absolutely f***ed. Wait a minute actually. These were my absolute pride and joys when I bought them. As you can see, they are a little worse for wear. Very dirty, big old scratch there. Covered in splashes of alcohol and completely ruined at the back. The right shoe's considerably better actually. All squashed and misshapen. Only slightly starting to tear at the back here. So I would buy a brand new pair. Next up, a top of the range MacBook Pro. I'm currently using a MacBook Pro for work and for editing this video, but it's just a standard one, so I would just upgrade that to the best storage space, the best RAM, the best processor, and I know I could buy a Mac, but I prefer the ability to work from anywhere. For example, bedroom, living room, office, my actual office, Starbucks, Costa. I value the freedom of movement over being stuck at a desk with a better computer. A nice Louis Vuitton hold-all for all the travelling I'd like to do. So after I chose these 3 items, I realised how long it was going to take for me to select individual items and spend £1 million. So after this, I accounted £25,000 for any various spending on clothes, shoes, a new camera. All of these things would come under that £25,000. Now on to the more expensive items in the stuff category. A stainless steel no-date Rolex Submariner. A nice clean and simple watch that I'm actually already on the list for, but I think Rolex seem to have lost my phone number and my email address because it's been nearly a year. A gold Rolex Daytona with a green dial. Speaks for itself really, look at the thing. An AP Royal Oak chronograph with the blue dial. Also speaks for itself. So that's £116,058 spent just on watches, plus all the other items I've bought for myself. There's still over £850,000 left to spend. Next up is buying things for other people. If you win £1 million and you don't spend money on anyone else, you're a psychopath. I would buy my dad a nice BMW M4. I know he likes BMWs, so I'm sure he'd be very happy with an M4. And to go along with that, I would also give him £25,000 to spend on whatever he likes. My dad doesn't have particularly expensive taste, so I'm sure that £25,000 will go a very long way. After that, Bryony's next up on the list. For those of you who don't know, Bryony is my girlfriend. Since we live together, whatever I buy for her is also available to me. So with that being said, she would be on the receiving end of a lovely brand new Tesla Model S, which I would of course be insured on as well. She would also get £25,000 to spend on whatever she likes, just like my dad. And knowing Bryony, she'd come back with £24,000 from the £25,000 after feeling guilty for spending too much on clothes and other things. And the final item on the list for Bryony is something that she's been talking about for years. A Defender, of all things, but not this new model, the old 110 model. I think she can picture herself living in the countryside with the dog, driving through fields. I don't know. What I do know is if we're buying a Defender, we're buying a cool one that I can drive to. So it would be a nice black number. So now we've bought 3 cars and 3 very expensive watches. So now it's time to go travelling, because who wouldn't want the money to be able to go travelling wherever they liked, whenever they liked. First destination would be Dubai. I've always fancied Dubai, I've just never really got round to going. I actually have a cousin who lives there and I really should take advantage of going to visit him, but I've just never got round to it. So me and Bryony would go there for a week and stay in the Fairmont. Depending on Bryony's holidays at work, we would maybe need to wait until the following year. But then it would be a trip across America. So first stop would be New York. So we visited New York in 2019, coincidentally the last holiday we were on before lockdown, and we absolutely loved it. So that would be the first leg of the trip, and we would stay at the Equinox Hotel. And yes, I have looked at booking.com, I have found the specific hotel that I would like to stay in. I've done that for the other destinations as well. After a week, we'd fly to Las Vegas and we'd stay at the Waldorf Astoria, and that would be for another week. Then on to LA for another week, and then finishing off the trip with another week in San Francisco. Over the course of this trip, I've budgeted £15,000 for flights, but now that I think about it, that seems quite high. I've no idea how I've came up with that number, but we'll roll with it. It's a hypothetical situation, it's not that important. We would then fly to Greece, again, holidays dependent with Bryony's work, because if we're spending £1 million carelessly, both of us have to keep our jobs. So this would have to work around holidays. Next up would be Greece. We would go to Greece, do a bit of travelling around the islands, and I've budgeted £10,000 for that, so we would just travel around with that £10,000 until it ran out. Over the course of all this travelling, I have budgeted £15,000 for spending money, but now that I think about it, that seems quite low for a trip to New York, Las Vegas, LA, San Francisco and Greece and Dubai, considering I've also budgeted that much for flights. But again, hypothetical situation, we move on. After all the travelling and coming home, it's now time for me to splurge on cars that I want, because I didn't want the Defender or the Model S. Car number 1, Mercedes C63S. This thing speaks for itself, just like the watches. This would be one of the 2 daily drivers, when in reality there's also the Model S and the Defender. And daily number 2 would be a Range Rover Vogue, because God forbid we only had one 4x4 in the driveway. And the main event, a Lamborghini Huracan V10 5.2 litre. This one would be saved for the weekends, the 3 or 4 sunny weekends that we get in Scotland. The remaining 48 or 49 weekends, it would remain in the garage, probably just needing to be charged every few weeks because it's not getting a run out. Because I would kill myself in a Lamborghini if it was raining. And with all these cars, I would need a house for me to park all the cars outside. So I'd buy a nice 5-bed house near where I currently live. Here's a random one I found off Rightmove. If this is your house, I'm sorry for taking a screenshot. But I did remove the address and all the details, it's just the thumbnail and the price. I would still buy this with a mortgage because we've been careless and we've bought a Lamborghini and various other cars. So I would put £250,000 down as a deposit, and this would give a mortgage of around £970 per month. So we would definitely need to keep our jobs to fund the mortgage and all the cars. I'd set aside £20,000 to furnish the new house, and I would just use the remaining money, I think it's probably about £17,000, to insure the cars for probably 2 months, and then I would have to get rid of them because I can't afford to insure all of them. And just like that, £1 million is gone. Probably within a year of winning the £1 million, I'd have a nice house with £200,000 mortgage on it, a few nice cars, some nice watches, and pretty much nothing else to show for it. And this was the real purpose of me making 2 videos. One on how to invest £1 million and one on how to spend £1 million. In the unlikely event that you find yourself with £1 million in your bank account through the lottery, through inheritance from a long lost great uncle, or finding it in a suitcase washed up on a beach, you need to think very carefully on what you would do in that unlikely situation. If you haven't seen the previous video, like I mentioned before, go back and watch it and you'll see how life-changing £1 million could be if spent correctly. If used incorrectly, you'll have a bunch of depreciating assets like cars and clothes. Maybe you'll have a nice house that you'll get to keep if you can afford the mortgage in this case. And this point stands no matter how much money you have. Here's a smaller scenario. You win £1,000 by betting on the football, or you go to the casino, you win at the bingo, you've won £1,000. You could go and buy a nice Canada Goose jacket or a Louis Vuitton handbag, or you could invest that same £1,000 into an index fund like the S&P 500, which will say returns 8% per year on average. In 10 years, that same £1,000 would be worth £2,158. The Louis Vuitton bag or the Canada Goose coat, after 10 years is probably either in the bin, in the charity shop, or ruined at the back of your wardrobe. Of course, the allure of a nice designer bag, designer coat, designer shoes, but invest that money up front and use the returns to buy these nice items later down the line when you can actually afford them. Obviously, it's fun to imagine what you would do with £1 million, Lamborghini, Ferrari, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Rolexes, whatever. But the sooner you start to imagine how you would maybe invest that money to create streams of income, the more likely you are to practice that in real life. And maybe next payday, rather than spending £500 on new Gucci trainers to destroy them, maybe you'll invest that £500. Maybe you'll invest the £500 every month. And maybe one day you'll have a nice big pot of money because you've consistently invested, and you'll have me to thank for it from this video. And with that, I think we'll call it a day on the how to spend £1 million, how to invest £1 million subject. Hopefully these two videos have opened your eyes a little bit to what is possible and how powerful investing your money can be. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel for future videos, and leave a comment below and let me know what you would spend £1 million on. It better be investments. Thanks for watching, folks. Take it easy.